Welcome to this learning resource on using quotes. This learning resource consists of 3 sections. I discuss why we use quotes, how to use them, so what to do when you want to use a quote, and then I give 2 examples of well-used quotes. So using quotes is part of making an argument. It's part of joining a conversation in the literature, in the scholarship, in the research, and contributing. So you draw on what other people have said, other people's insights and findings, and you use that to kind of like bounce off your own ideas, set up your arguments, or describe the existing scholarship, that sort of thing. So quotes are actually used as evidence, and they can be quite vivid and quite powerful in making your case, and making your arguments, and defending your thesis. So how do you know when you read something that you see as particularly germane or relevant to your essay? How do you know whether to quote or paraphrase that author? I should say that conventions do vary, so it does depend on what discipline you're writing in, what journal you're publishing in, what book you're writing for, etc. But a sort of general rule of thumb would be that you don't want to quote too much. And the reason you don't want to quote too much is it can come off as if you're drawing rather too heavily on what other people have said. You're drawing on other people's voices as opposed to using your own voice to make a unique contribution from your perspective. So when you write, the important thing is what you're saying, what your voice, what you can tell us. So you don't want to clutter your paper with too much of what other people have said in their own words. You want it to be, written by you. So, if a quote is just really well written and captures perfectly a sentiment or an insight or whatever it may be, then a quote can be quite useful for making your case. But in general, in the most cases, you'll be paraphrasing what other people have said and then referencing, not producing the quote, i.e. not reproducing their voice in their own words. So how do you do it? The first thing you want to do when you use a quote is you want to introduce the quote. So you don't want the quote to appear in your essay in a kind of ad hoc or haphazard way. You want the reader to see that it's coming. It helps with orientating the reader. And then, so you introduce the quote, you produce the quote, and then immediately afterwards you want to unpack the quote. So you want to state very clearly and explicitly what the relevance of the quote is, what it's doing in your paper, and what the quote means. Let's look at an example. So this first sentence is me introducing the quote. So then the second sentence is a block quote. The second and third sentence are block quotes. That's a long quote. So check this first sentence. At one striking moment, Jan Bonsma writes. So I'm telling the reader, look, there's a quote coming. The whole object of genetic improvement should be to produce cheaper meat. In other words, the superior genotype should give a superior phenotype at the lowest cost possible. And then that number there immediately afterwards is my footnote, so showing that it's a quote. In this way, cattle are not only reduced to mere objects, but specifically as cheap for humans to purchase. Cattle are conceptualized in ideal form as, quote, cheaper meat. So those final 2 sentences, these ones here in white text, those are the unpacking of the quote. So I introduce the quote, produce the quote, and then I unpack the quote. Let's look at another example. So that was a block quote, a long quote. This one is a fragment of a quote that's incorporated into one of my sentences. So check this out. Activity theory is a valuable heuristic for describing pedagogical change, as it allows for rich descriptions of an activity and the, quote, processes underlying the object, end quote, when a new tool or mediating artifact enters into activity systems. And there's my reference, Hardman 2005. So it's important to remember that when you use a fragment of a quote, you must make sure that when you insert it into one of your own sentences, that your overall sentence remains grammatical. that it has the appropriate, correct syntactic structure. So either choose a fragment of a quote that can be incorporated into your sentence, or adjust your sentence to accommodate the fragment of the quote. Thanks for watching. Please check out the other videos.